Hi, this is your lecture on Chapter 19, Part 1. Let me share the screen. Okay. What we're going to learn here are basic tools in finance. What we're going to start off with is, I guess, one of the most primary tools, which is present value calculations. Okay. Basically, how much is $100 worth in the future? That's future value. And if I'm going to get $100 in the future, how much is that worth today? Okay. Uh, then we're going to talk about risk aversion and 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 risk, specifically risk aversion. We're going to get into insurance. Then we're going to talk about asset portfolios, and this is your kind of your basic overview of finance and investments. Okay. Okay, finance. What is finance? It's the field that studies how people make decisions regarding the allocation of resources, mostly money, over time and handling of risks. Okay. Financial system coordinates savings and investments, right? So our financial market, as we discussed before, we have savers, they provide money, and investors, they obtain that money, borrow it to build factories and whatnot. And participants in the financial systems make decisions regarding the allocation of resources over time and handling of risks. Okay, so let's go through one aspect of this, which is over time aspect. Okay? Handling of resources over time, specifically money. And in that vein, we're going to talk about the present value. What is present value? Present value is the amount of money today that would be needed using the market interest rate to provide a given future amount of money. Okay, well, what does that even mean? Well, let's just keep it simple and just say it's the money you have today, or how much future money you have in the future. How much is that worth today? So let's start out with something simple. Let's say you have $100 today. Future value is the amount of money in the future that an amount of money today, the present value, will yield given market interest rate. So what does that mean? That means basically if I have $100 today and the interest rate is 10%, then future value, so present value is $100, future values is $110. The $100 you have, well, that's what you're going to have in the future, 1 year from now. Plus, because the interest rate is 10%, you're going to have another $10. So today's $100 with the given interest rate of 10% is worth $110 a year from now. Compounding is the accumulation of a sum of money in, say, a bank account where the interest earned remains in the account to earn additional interest. So if you left $110, the $100 today, you left it in the bank for 1 year, you have $110. Next, if you left it again for another year, you get 10% on the $100 you still left in. Plus, remember, you have $10 of interest income that you earned between 1 year and the next for zero, and you get interest on top of your interest. The $10 makes another 10%. Okay. So that's what compounding is. Because of compounding, small difference in interest rates lead to big differences over time. And we'll go through that in Excel. Okay, so let's first learn about present value, future value, interest rate, kind of what I just went through. And let's put it in Excel and test this. Okay. And as part of this, I want to tell you, you guys are young, invest now. Invest now a little bit of money because you will see when you turn 50, 60 years old, that little bit of money that you put away will turn into big money. Okay, if you put $100 in the bank account today, how much will you have will it be worth n years from now? The present value is 100, the amount of money you put in. The interest rate is R. Future value 1 year from now is 1 plus 10% times 100, it's 110. If you put it in again, this is what you put in your second year, and that gets 1 plus R. So then you could see it's 1 plus R squared times 100 after 2 years, right? Let's do that. So let's say R is equal to 10%. So if you put in $100 right here, next year, you get 110. That's the 1 plus R, right? And what happens after that is this 1 plus R, which is this, that gets multiplied by 1 plus R. So 110 gets 100, you get 110 back plus 10% of 110. Okay, and that turns to this right here. Okay? 3 years, this 2 turns to a 3. So after n years, what is n? I don't know, 10, 20, 30, generic number. It becomes to the nth power. Okay, so let's do this. Okay? Let's do it in Excel. Okay, so here's the present value calculations. Here's the formula. X is the amount you receive in the future. So then, well, that's different. Let's do that later. So basically today, if you have $100, the future value becomes 1 plus R to the nth power, okay? But this is the opposite of that, discounting. Find the present value for a future sum of money. That's the opposite. Again, we use the same interest rate, and let's suppose X is now the future value. If X is the future value, the present value, you just divide by 1 plus Rn. So future value equals present value times 1 plus R to the nth power. Present value is equals to future value divided by 1 plus R to the nth power. Okay, that's all it is. Okay, so what I mean by that is that we have $100, X is $100 today. Then that means tomorrow we have X times 1 plus R, right? That's tomorrow. So if I have this, okay, so then if I want to know, let's say this is equal to Y, okay, and I want to know how to convert Y to X, then I got to divide by 1 plus R. Because remember, Y is equal to X X times 1 plus R. So if I cancel this, then it becomes X. So if you have future value amount, okay, you divide by 1 plus R to the nth power to get the present value, okay? And if you have present value amount, you multiply by 1 plus R to the nth power to get future value, okay? All right, so let me get out of here, sharing, and let's share the Excel to do a bit more calculations. Okay, here's Excel. So let's do this. So suppose the interest rate R is 10%. Okay, and let's call this period or year, and let's call this age. And let's say you are, I don't know, you're 20 years old. Okay, so that's year one. So I'm gonna say 20, and we're gonna save for retirement. So I'm gonna scroll down until we're about, I don't know, 60. Let's do simple and stupid. Let's say 60. Yeah. So that's the age from 20 all the way down to 60. And I want to see how many years of savings that is. It's about 40, 41 years of savings. Okay. All right. Let's put amount saved. Okay. And let's say we put in $100 a month. $100 a month. That means over a year, that's $1,200 over the year. Okay. So then at the end, so let's say you put it in. So at the end of the year, what happens is, so we're going to put, this is the amount saved every year. Okay. So every year we're going to put in 1,200. Okay. And at the end of the year, so this is, let's say we did this at the beginning of the year. Let's make it simple and stupid. And let's say at the beginning of age 20, you put in 1,200 dollars. So end of year, what happens is this becomes one plus interest rate. Okay, okay, one plus interest rate. I messed up. Let's do this again. One plus the interest rate because you get 10%. And there, that's what you have at the end of the year. At the end of the second year, you have this, right? Hold on. You have this times one plus the interest rate plus you have this times one plus the interest rate. Okay. So what you have is you have this at the you put in at the beginning of the year, that gets you 10%, plus what you put in what you have in there at the age of at the end of when you're 20 years old, you have 1320, and you get 10% on that as well. Okay. And I'm going to scroll that down and we'll make all of these dollar signs. And you could see that when you turn 60 years old, at the end of 60, so when you basically are going to turn 61, you will have $643,000. Okay. And let's see how much money you actually put in. You put in $1,200 for about 21 years. So you put in $49,000 and you end up with this 643,000. So you made $594,000. Okay. Now let's say, well, let's say the interest rate becomes 11. And this is where the notes say the beauty of compounding is that small changes in the interest rate makes huge changes in the amount of money you'll have saved. So I go up from 10 to 11. Let's see what happens. It went up to 861. We were at 600, I think, last time. Yeah, we were at 643. And now it's 861. So the same amount, 49,200 that you put in total every year, you put in $1,200. Basically, every month you put in $100. You may now profit of $800,000, 812,000. Okay. Let's say you put more than 1,200. Let's say you were able to, forego Starbucks coffee and you're able to forego going to eat at fancy restaurants and maybe that extra movie every month, and you're able to save double. Okay. And let's make sure everything is equal to that. And let's go back to 10%. It was at 650,000. Look at this. If you doubled the amount you save, you put in the double the amount, almost 100,000, but look how much money you have. You have 1.3 million. Just putting away $200 every month, getting 10% gives you over $1 million. You're a millionaire. Okay. And how do you get this 10%? Well, that's for you to discuss with your investment advisors and whatnot, but just put it in the S&P 500 target portfolio. Put it in something like S&P 500, and you should be able, the last several years, it's been getting close to, if not above 10%. Okay, depending on when you're watching this video. Okay, all right. So that's what compounding is. And the beauty of compounding is just putting small amounts of money away and letting it grow and letting the interest get interest. Interest gets interest. It turns to big sums at the end of the year. Or I'm going to stop sharing this. Okay, go back to the notes. Okay. So that's discounting present value, calculations and whatnot. Here's the key right here, the two that we derive. Future value is present value times 1 plus r to the nth power. Present value is future value divided by 1 plus r to the nth power. Okay, here's some examples in my notes that you should go through to kind of get this. Again, more example as part of active learning. Okay. And we will end part 1 of the lecture for chapter 19 here, and we'll start up at managing risk at part 2. Have a good day.